Hey guys, I have no idea why it's so dark. Let me figure that out real quick because it definitely should not be that dark. Hold on, let me figure out what's going on with the camera. People hear me? Are we here? Other than it being incredibly dark, somebody say something so I can tell what's going on. Anybody? Let's see. Hold on. I never tried this YouTube live before, so I wasn't sure what it was going to do from a camera standpoint. But the Facebook thing's always worked, so I'm not sure why this is doing that. Hold on. Letting people join right now anyway, so it's not the end of the world. I see in the top left corner, we got people coming on. Camera. Is it not really dark on the thing? Or is that just me? Somebody tell me. I have no idea why it's dark. Give me a second. Hold on. The room is not dark. Hold on. Let's turn the lamp on. It's just a camera for some reason. Hold on. Does anybody have any advice here? Because I've never dealt with this before at all. Yes, they mentioned it's dark. I don't know how to fix it. Hold on. Check the camera settings. I'm trying to do that. I'm looking right now. It's not as bad when I pull up other things and it puts more light on the screen. For some reason, the light's not catching the camera very well. I don't know what's going on there. This is the ESPN 8 we referenced. We probably could do this, frankly. We could probably get the podcast on YouTube Live and allow comments as we go. It had been something we talked about for a long time, and we just have we've never really taken that step to go that far, but I guess we could do that. So just a thought as we kind of move forward. Yeah, I didn't switch from the camera. All I did was pull up system preferences on my computer, but it brought in more light to the screen, and it's lit everything up. So I don't know, that happened. It that is a lot better though, isn't it? We're lit up now. Okay. Is it lagging? We good? Everybody good? Okay. Yeah, Neil's not here. We are not together 24 hours a day. I don't know where Neil is, but I'm sure he's probably having a drink. There's an NBA game on somewhere. He's probably checking out that. So anyway, let's get started. Do me a favor, if you are using your YouTube username, subscribe. It obviously costs you nothing. It's not like the site or anything. It just lets you know when we post videos. Also helps me out a little bit along the way as well. So down at the bottom, subscribe on the link. I would really, really appreciate that. It would be great for everybody and help me out. Dallas Woolfolk today around 1 o'clock or so started breaking, leaving the Ole Miss program immediately. And here's the deal on that. We all hope Dallas is well, continues to get well. This is about Ole Miss moving forward, what it does for the team, what it does for the program, where they go from here for a guy that you got to kind of feel bad for him. I wrote this on Twitter earlier today. He was the closer for Team USA basically 10, 11 months ago. We all know he lost velocity, lost some confidence, did not have the command that everybody was expecting throughout most of the season. And frankly, I kind of thought he was getting some of that back. He comes in against Pine Bluff a couple weeks ago or last week, and he was 93, 94. The fastball was up. He seemed to have a little spring in his step, and then now I guess a week later, he is off the team. And I don't think it's a thing that was known very long. I know they had a team meeting around 2:00 before practice to tell them what had happened, what was going on. So the team didn't know for a while. It came out kind of at the same time that Ole Miss confirmed my report and had the release there. So that was this afternoon. But as you look at this pitching staff, the biggest thing that caught my attention was that okay, tell them to hit the bell by the subscribe button. That lets people know that you've uploaded a new video. So hit the bell. We appreciate that. We'll doing that. And yeah, we have thought about this for the podcast. We're not there yet, but I think we can't get there. I've enjoyed learning a little more about YouTube and using that as we go. But what I was going to say, the first thing that hit me today was two things from a positive Ole Miss, no sky falling standpoint when we hear about this Woolfolk thing. Number one is Houston Roth appears to be healthy. Had that hamstring been a more lingering thing, had it been as bad as some of the early rumors on how bad it was going to be, and you lose him as well, I think it's devastating to them. But I think with his health being pretty good, that's a huge deal. And then Parker Caracci, after a couple of weeks of his velocity being down and some struggles there, he seemed to look a little better as well. So there's the positives, because Parker is going to have a huge role going forward. Will Stokes is going to have to be consistent for this team to reach expectations. When I talk about expectations, I'm not talking about, being a quality baseball team. Ole Miss has set a standard with this team. You've got a number of recruiting class in the country. You've got a top 5, top 10 team. They're being graded on a curve. I wrote that a lot. When I talk about expectations, I'm talking super regional, College World Series. And for those to reach those expectations, Will Stokes has got to be consistent now. I think Greer Holston's going to get more important innings. We'll see how he handles that. At the start of the year, he was doing a fantastic job. I thought he had been a little unlucky. I'm kind of curious if maybe his confidence has been hit a little bit the last couple of weeks, but he's going to have to step up. I think Roth and Holston are the two guys that will sort of dictate how this thing's going to go. I think I can predict fairly well what Caracci's going to do the rest of the way, but I think when you look at it from a totality of this bullpen, it's all on Roth, it's all on Holston to give them more. They don't need to throw Etheridge more than once a weekend, or at least maximize that first time a weekend. We've got a lot of stats in SEC play saying that Etheridge is really, really good, probably Ole Miss's best arm in that first appearance role, but it falls off pretty good. He doesn't have the rubber arm, at least this season, compared to a lot of guys in the past. We've seen him be able to go on a Friday, then a Saturday, or a Friday, and then a Sunday. So they've really got to maximize Etheridge when they get that chance. Little aside here, somebody asking about Gunnar Hoglund and Joe Gray. I thought the entire time they've had more of a puncher's chance toward Joe Gray than a lot of people thought. It's not a Gavin Caccini, Ty Hensley situation, just because he's got Scott Boras for an agent. He does not have elite speed. He's got good speed. He's got great instincts. He hits the ball hard, but he's right-handed without elite speed. It's going to drop you down a few draft picks. Now, the thing we're going to get to Ole Miss is this slot thing is getting crazy. There's so many picks now that are over $1 million, and now Joe's well into the 7 figures. But because he's probably not getting that top 20, 25 money, I do. I think that he ends up maybe having a good chance of showing at school. And then I didn't know a lot about Gunnar Hoglund. We were talking to Brian Sikowski on the podcast, the national scouting supervisor for Perfect Game. And he says that he thinks Hoglund shows. He thinks Hoglund's really set on playing two ways, pitching and playing in the field as well. So we'll see where that goes. But I would take his word for it. He knows more about that than me right now, because it's a guessing game. I think I get a pretty good beat on it the week and a half, 2 weeks before the draft happens. But earlier than that, it just takes one team. I always come back to this. Jake Overby was probably not a 25-round guy to most of the teams. The Phillies liked him in the 10th. He got drafted in the 10th. He still showed up at school, but that just shows you how volatile the draft can be with him. So Gray and Hoglund, by far the two stories we're following all the way through. as of right now, I like their chances with Gray, and then we'll see with Gunner. This does not open up a spot on the 35-man roster. There's really nobody there. I mean, I guess Ole Miss could. Well, no, it has to be set for the season, so no, there's no chance to do anything there whatsoever. Now, what it does do is clearly Dallas was always going to be on the 27-man roster from a travel standpoint. So they'll add somebody to it. I don't know if it'll be one of the young arms. I don't know if there's a bat they're not bringing, but they can have 27 players on the travel roster or on the roster for home SEC games. I guess the conference roster would be the way to put it. So they'll fill his spot there, and then Ole Miss will move on. Because you remember a couple years ago, they had a lot of injuries, and Jake Morgan, I think, was out for the year. Somebody else was out for a year. Maybe it was Jake. Maybe it was somebody else. And even then, they could not even then, they couldn't bring somebody in for the 35. They were just playing with less than 35 players. They had 32, 33, something like that. So, no, they can't fill that out. But for me, this is about that. Somebody asked about Austin Miller. Yeah, I think that's somebody that could step up. I've liked what he's shown so far. You know, he caught a bad route because he finally got that opportunity against Vanderbilt. He gave up the ball that was hit for a double, I think, down the line there that ended up being a really, really key, important run in that Vanderbilt game. But you go back and look at that. It was a really good pitch. It was a ball down and in. The guy went down. He got a barrel on it and put it down into the corner. So I don't really blame Miller for that at all. I thought that he's shown good composure in the chances he's gotten. The slider has a little bit of life. The fastball's good enough. So, no, Miller's the guy, too, that you look at next year, I think he makes a big jump. I think in this introductory year, maybe he could have had a little more role. Maybe he's still going to have a role moving forward. But I think as a career standpoint, I really like what I see from him. So, you know, that's nothing against him so far. I thought even in some of his mistakes he's made, it's been somewhat bad luck, and I think he'll be fine moving forward. Yeah, Hoagland, 0.27 ERA, 52 innings. He has finally walked someone. He went the entire regular season without walking anybody, so he did walk somebody past that point. When I talked to him, he'd only had 6 3-ball counts. So no, he is a contact guy. He is going to locate it with command, and a lot of that's because he has confidence at the high school level. They just can't hit him. He throws everything well enough that not many high school bats are able to get to him. Have not heard much draft buzz on Ryan Olenek whatsoever. You know, he's a great college baseball player. He's probably about to break the SEC record for SEC game batting average. But I don't think pros really know where to put him from a position standpoint. He doesn't have power at that level. I think that he will have a hard time getting a signing bonus of relevance at the pro level. Now, I mean, somebody will sign him just because of the track record and being able to do it at an SEC level. But I'm not sure that he's going to command a big high price tag at the next level, and that's something at this time I expect him back next season for his senior year. Thoughts on morale and impact with the team regarding Woolfolk's departure? I think if you're going to have the situation, you'd rather have a team structured like this year compared to last year. You know, last year's team was very fragile, had so many freshmen, did not have a lot of guys in key roles. But this group's been around the block so much, and it's so late in the year that they're focused on goals of the next 2 weeks, the next 3 weeks. And I think if there is a group that can handle this, it is this type of group. When you look at, you know, Brady Feigl and Will Golson and some of the older guys that have really been around, and then some of those sophomores that are battle tested. And frankly, there's a little bit of legacy on the line here for this group. I think it's a prideful group. I think it's a confident group. And you look at some of these classes, they're running the risk of not winning postseason games as a complete class. You know, Ole Miss goes 0-2 in 2015 out at UCLA. They go 0-2 channel and in a positive and in a correct way, because it feels to me, not from a coaching staff standpoint, but just in general, it feels like a very important kind of transition year either way, where, you know, are you an elite program? Do you go win postseason games? Do you advance in the postseason? You've got the big class. Do you take advantage of them, or do you struggle for consecutive years during that time of the season? And I think that's where we're at right now. It's a very critical time for this team and this program to meet and surpass some expectations, and those expectations are very, very high. There's no doubt about that. So, Biddle got rocked by Pedro Alvarez in the SEC tournament one year. What I remember about that, I really from the Vanderbilt years, I just remember those 2 years of back-to-back, the doubleheaders both days. Matt Smith, one of my favorite players to cover. I remember his fight with, or close to fight with the Vanderbilt first base coach. And those were fun. That's what I was telling Neil on the podcast of the day. I get why they don't do those Saturday doubleheaders anymore, and the Saturday in Hoover is single elimination. But those were always really, really fun events. Those were pretty fun days from a baseball standpoint, especially when you got teams like Ole Miss and Vanderbilt that didn't like each other very much. There was some chippiness there. It was definitely intense, and they were fun. I still contend Vanderbilt is Ole Miss's biggest rivalry from an intensity standpoint. I just do. I see that. Did you foresee Ole Miss being in the national seed conversation this late in the year? I thought they'd be fringe. I thought Ole Miss was going to be one of the last teams to host or one of the first teams out from hosting. Before the season started, I think I predict them with 38 wins and 17 SEC wins is where I had them. I think that's the way I had it. I thought they'd go 21-5 in the non-conference, 17-13 in the SEC, and win 38 games. So I'll be somewhat close to that. I think if I had to pick right now what I think Ole Miss does, I do think it's 17-13. I think they take 2 out of 3 from Auburn this weekend, and then I think they take 2 out of 3 from Alabama next weekend. They haven't shown me the ability to sweep, and that's a little unfair because the SEC is so hard to sweep. But on the road, even as bad of a team as Alabama is, they have found a way to get one sometimes. Ole Miss didn't sweep Tennessee at home when they had that opportunity, and I just do. I think it's 4-2 from here on, and I don't think 17 is enough for a national seed. It's a definite host. They're going to play baseball in Oxford if they do that that first weekend of the postseason, but they might need some help. I mean, if you're looking at it, the thing that would worry me about Ole Miss or any of these SEC teams from a standpoint of national seed purposes is if you just miss out on one, you're very likely going to an SEC stadium for a super regional if everything holds scratch. I mean, I could see Georgia and Ole Miss and Auburn, maybe even Arkansas and Ole Miss being in that 7, 8, 9, 10 area, where if you're Ole Miss or Arkansas or whomever, you might not only have a super regional on the road, it might be at one of these other SEC parks now that they're seeding 1 through 16, and that would be very, very tough, a very tough environment to win in. So that's something that I would just kind of look at. I also think they might be cute. I think if East Carolina wins their last 2 series, East Carolina very likely could be a national seed, and somebody could be headed to Greenville, North Carolina, and it would be just like the committee to send Ole Miss there and do a Mike Bianco, Cliff Godwin thing as they move forward. Any chance Elko could play right field? Maybe. I mean, Keenan's obviously got third base locked down. Zabowski's back to play first, but it's a good problem to have. I mean, I could see Elko DHing some. I could see them trying to move them into a corner outfield spot because he's got to play. I mean, you're going to need Tim Elko's bat. He would have played a lot more this season had Keenan not potentially been the best third baseman that they've had as a freshman since Mike's been there. I mean, I wrote this on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and I prefaced it by saying maybe this is a complete hot take, and maybe it is, but just comparing freshman seasons, I think that Keenan has had a more impactful, a better season than Chris Godwin in his first season because he's been fantastic offensively and defensively. Everybody's talked about his offense. He's 2-time SEC Player of the Week or SEC Freshman of the Week, but he's been fabulous defensively. He's a guy that's made every play, and Mike made a point that I had not thought about a couple weeks ago. He said, you know, a lot of first or third basemen that they've had, Colby Bortles and some other ones, they played back. They had good hands, but they didn't have fabulous hands. So they had to play back a little bit, and it gave up so much ground in front. Keenan plays up. Keenan's able to play even with the bag up in front of the bag, and it takes away to the bunt to that side. It takes away so much real estate to where they come in, they play defense, and they save runs and save hits that way. So it was something that I hadn't really thought about, but it makes a lot of sense. So I think that Keenan, yeah, definitely is people told me about him coming in. I was pretty focused on Elko and some other ones. They said, hey, Keenan's the guy. He wasn't as highly regarded, but he's definitely every bit as talented. He's got great hands, and he shows those offensively and defensively. Who do I predict an opening day starter in center field? If Joe Gray shows, I could see that. I think it'd be very easy also to move Ryan Olenek back over into center. He's done it before. He'd do it again. I'd say Gray or Olenek, depending on the situation. Starting pitching next year, I'll go with a rotation of Will Etheridge, Houston Roth, and Jordan Fowler. We'll go that way. I think we'll go Etheridge, Roth, and Fowler as of right now. Plenty of time to change my minds. I think Miller can be really good out of the bullpen. Some of it depends what we get on the back end. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't made up my mind yet whether I think Parker Caracci is going to go pro after the season. I think he's going to have a chance. I think somebody's going to take him because of his high impact ability, as hard as he can throw. The slider is better than he gets credit for. Frankly, he should throw the slider more than he does because it's a pitch that can work. So I think that he's going to dictate that a little bit. We'll see what that looks like. But no, I'll go with that rotation right now. As of this moment, I expect all three starting pitchers to leave campus after this year and go pro. I just think Feigel's slider plays enough to where somebody gives him a chance, and he's already a junior. That's the problem. When you got juniors and you get a chance to go, you run such the risk of being that senior sign if you come back. It's not just – I mean, it is losing leverage, but it even goes beyond that. Because of the collective bargaining agreement that we have right now, you could easily be an 8th-round pick and they pay you $8,000. And you just get nothing and you go, and it is what it is. So any chance to get any signing bonus whatsoever of note, I think you have to do that. And that's why I think that Feigl and MacArthur likely go pro at the end of the season. Rolliston's going to be a top 15 pick, so he's gone. So I think they're replacing their entire starting rotation next season. Is Dillard the best pure power hitting Rebel I've seen? He has 15 home runs right now with the old bats. Yeah, he'd have a lot of home runs. I have such a hard time comparing eras now, even in the 12, 13 years that I've been doing it, just because there's new balls. The balls go farther than they used to with the flatter seams. You've got a new bats. They used to have the rocket launchers. They went to BB core. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, you forget, Orvis had these bats and he hit 20 in a season, give or take, whatever that was. But, yeah, he would be up there. I mean, Cockrell's probably got the best pure power on the team. But I think Dillard has done more with it from just an overall level this season. But, I mean, Cockrell still – the way Cockrell's able to get backspin on the ball and lift it, it's one of the more impressive things to do. I know he amazes David DeLucci all the time just because – of his batting practice and the way he gets backspin on the baseball, and I'll agree with that. Cockrell's the one that really impresses me from a raw power standpoint. Dillard, he looks great when he keeps that approach until 2 strikes, and then he gets 2 strikes. When he does kind of shorten up and change his approach a little bit, it's when he gets long and still stays so spread out with 2 strikes that I don't like his at bats. But when he really comes in and shortens up in negative counts, I think he's become one of the best hitters on the team because he walks so much. He's got a great eye. Sometimes it to his detriment because the SEC umpiring is so bad at times. I saw Morris Hodges, who was the home plate umpire for the LSU game the other day that screwed up constantly in the late innings. I saw he had some snafu at Clemson. Aaron Phipps tweeting about it over the weekend too. So the umpiring leaves a lot to be desired, and sometimes it hurts the hitters because Fortes and Dillard especially have really good eyes that sometimes it doesn't work. Mike Clement has not gotten the credit he deserves for the sophomore surge and approach. Mike's done a really good job with this group, keeps confidence up. It's also tinkered a little bit. I say it every year. A hitting coach is a lot about being a psychologist as much as anything else. You've got to keep the guys positive. You got to make small changes. You've got to you got to stay on them constantly, but not in a negative way. And he's done a really, really good job with that. I agree. Best closer in the Bianco era. Well, that's hard. Let's see. Who do we have to choose from? Well, it's Scott Biddle. It's Biddle when he's healthy. There's no doubt about that. Morgan was maybe the toughest just from a grinded out. I think there at one point, Morgan had gone so many innings without a walk or so many innings without an earned run or something crazy. One of the better stats, I don't remember what it was, but Biddle was dynamic. Biddle was the guy that I really was more impressed than anybody else. Underrated one, if this can potentially be underrated, people forget about, Stephen Head filled that role at times. And then in 2006, Garrett White did a good job when they had a young pitching staff. He was a JUCO guy that came in and closed for a season and bridged a gap that was very, very necessary in 2006. I think he's underrated. And then obviously recently with Wyatt Short. I don't know any reason why Mike Clement wouldn't be back next year. I actually think he's a head coach potential down the road. We've talked to him a couple times in media settings when Mike has been gone for different reasons. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Clement be a head coach down the road. I think that's very, very possible with him. The biggest thing I've talked about with Woolfolk, if you missed the beginning, was just kind of who has to step up, what the roles look like. I refuse to get into what potentially has happened with him. I think right now everybody's just wishing him the best because just had a trying year in so many different ways. I don't know what it looks like after this year. I don't know what this means completely for any draft potential. Even don't know if maybe he comes back next season. I mean, I guess that's even a possibility. It's not like he's leaving on bad terms. He still has a year of eligibility left. I haven't talked to anybody. I'll talk to Mike for the first time tomorrow after this, obviously, because they play Auburn tomorrow night. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. There's plenty of time to figure it out. Then nothing's happening today, nothing's happening tomorrow, and we'll go from there. Dallas and Caracci. Dallas from last year, Caracci on this year's team. Would it be a shoe-in for the College World Series? It would help. You would get tons more out of the bullpen. I'll tell you right now, though, the bullpen's getting a lot of flack, and I understand it. And a lot of that's because expectations. I mean, Aaron Fitt calls it the best bullpen in the nation coming into the season, and I understand why. There's tons of talent. It should have been tons of depth. A lot of it hasn't panned out, and frankly, that was talking about a team that they didn't expect Caracci to contribute. Now he's been the MVP from a bullpen standpoint. But what's going to carry this team one way or the other is starting pitching. It's not the bullpen. The bullpen has been put in a lot of disadvantageous situations throughout the year. It's the rotation. It's can Rollison consistently put up ace-worthy performances? And I don't mean Casey Mize stuff every week. I just mean 6.5, 7, 8 innings occasionally, hold the team down, set a mindset, and kind of just set the tone for the weekend like is necessary. And then can Feigl and MacArthur do the Saturday and Sunday jobs, which is go 6 innings, keep your team in the game, and occasionally throw up something special. That's the recipe for rotations for teams that go deep. Christian Trent was kind of the exception. He was a second ace on that 14 team. And Ole Miss has had a lot of those situations in the past with Lynn and Pomeranz on the same team. But you need that Saturday guy to be steady to great. Philip Irwin filled that role as good as anybody in 2009 behind Pomeranz. Irwin was always going to last a while. He's going to give you a chance. He was going to be tough enough to win big games. Phil beat Virginia in the Super Regional and did some great things. So that's what Brady's got to do. And then James, for the most part, has done his job. When you talk about MacArthur just having to throw on Sundays, I think Ole Miss is 10-1 or something like that in the powder blue this season. Well, that means they're 10-1 in games that James MacArthur pitches because he's been exceptional, and most of the time I know he hasn't gone as long as some would like every weekend, but he's been more than enough. I have no qualms there with what James has given this team this season. Tennessee Tech in a regional, if they get in ours, meaning Ole Miss, I think Tennessee Tech is a tough team. They hit the ball a ton, and they're riding confidence right now. They've already won more than 40-something games. That's a dangerous team. That reminds me of maybe that Western Kentucky team in 2009. They're that kind of offense potentially, especially if you're not placing and you're not pitching as well as you should. So no, Tennessee Tech is that's a dangerous team that when these regionals get announced here in a couple of weeks, that's not one you want to see in your bracket. I think St. Louis is not one you want to see in your bracket. And then you don't want to see any with those crazy aces, the certain teams that have the one stud pitcher that could throw things into a bind after that first night. Boston College would have been that had they been a 4 when they were in here a couple years ago because of the Justin Dunn kid that they had. So, yeah, that's the thing to avoid. You want to avoid those dynamic, confident offenses like Tennessee Tech, and then it's avoiding the aces that can beat you in the rotation. Yes, Ole Miss will be in the other bullpen next year, so you don't have to worry about the students and the rock thing from a couple weeks ago. I thought they were going to do it mid-season, but I think things have lagged it behind just a little bit because of all the rain they've had. But they're gonna move next year. The visiting bullpen will be on the left-hand side. The home bullpen will be the right-hand side because they're going to be in that dugout. The clubhouse is behind that side, so that'll be for next year. It's no big deal whatsoever. Yeah, Rollison's BIP is still really high, but I'll tell you, he just wasn't good enough last week. I mean, that is very fair. That is a factor that his batting average on balls in play. He's been unlucky, but we don't have other stats that help with that luck stat. We can get some reads out of batting average on balls in play. Anything over 300-ish means that he has been unlucky, but we don't know exit speeds. We don't know velocity of every ball. We don't know pitch locations the way you can figure out a Major League Baseball. And while, yeah, that one stat is an encouraging thing for him because you would think it would turn around, I don't know the other stats that go along with that. We don't have access to those. And I think here recently he just hasn't been good enough. I mean, he admitted to us on Tuesday, I guess was the day we talked to Ryan, and he said that he was still throwing across his body, and it's just all about fastball command. We're talking about a guy that was the number one prospect in the Cape League last summer because of that fastball command. He was great to his glove side. He could throw it anywhere. He was hitting all quadrants. He was throwing it with elevated velocity, and of all things I didn't expect, he's just lost a lot of that fastball command this season. So if he finds it, Ole Miss could be in really, really good shape, but he's got to find it, and he's tinkering, he's working on it. I know he's certainly not comfortable with the way it's been going, but we'll see how it is on Thursday night in a game that Ole Miss frankly has to win. They're going to face Davis Daniel for Auburn, very upside pitcher, but somebody who hasn't made it through the second and third time through an order very well this season. It's advantage Ole Miss, and you try to win the baseball game and then turn the pressure back on Casey Mize on Friday night, when the hope that night is to get somebody on base and run into one and hit a ball out of a ballpark, get to a bullpen, do anything to just scrap Mize out of the game. Mize so far in his career has thrown 13 innings against Ole Miss. He's allowed one run, and he's that good. As I said on the podcast of the day, if Ole Miss doesn't have, more than a run or a hit or something after 4 innings, I wouldn't say, oh, they didn't show up to play today. Well, Casey Mize is pretty good on the other side, and that's going to be, if nothing else, it's fun to watch him on the mound Friday night. But Thursday night's all about Ole Miss. That's on Ryan. He's got to have a great effort. Ole Miss has got to win that baseball game because they really need to for multiple reasons. It's to keep pace. It's to get a tiebreaker over Auburn. It's to put another really big scalp on your resume, because you find a way to beat Auburn. You've got series wins over Auburn, at Texas A&M, Georgia, Arkansas. There's not really anybody in the country other than maybe Florida that can match that level of quality wins. So that would be huge for Ole Miss to find a way to get the weekend. Take advantage of the schedule. You didn't have to play the Gators. You didn't have to make maybe a funky trip to Lexington, Kentucky this year. And you got a lot of really good baseball teams at home at Swayze Field. And to this point, they've taken care of it. They've only lost 4 games at home. I think they're 25-4 or something like that in Oxford. So that needs to be 26-5 at the end of the weekend. So that's kind of where we are with that. Anything else in the last few minutes here? Just fire away. Again, please subscribe. We've got a couple of podcasts coming out. I know Neil talked to Ross Dellinger for a beer garden. Jeffrey and I did a Net Par, another golf podcast. I did about 30 minutes with Jonathan Randolph. We talked about Jonathan's got an 8-week-old. Congratulations to him. He's taking the child on the road for the first time to the Byron Nelson next week. So we talked about parenting, tips he's got for trying to be a golfer on the road with a baby, and just some different things about his schedule and whatnot. So that's kind of where we are with podcasts for the week, and we'll incorporate a lot more of these. I really like the YouTube format. I've enjoyed using that, and I think it's easy for you guys to interact with me a little more easier than it is on Facebook at times, just because of the format with it. So anybody got any other questions as we close up for the night? No problem. Yeah, we'll try to at least one a week. I think especially in the summer, we can knock these out when things happen. It makes it easy to interact with you guys. And we're going to look into incorporating this with the podcast. I think it'd be pretty cool to have this as a capability, as we can comment on questions. We can have some interaction during the middle of the show. So it'd be great. So, all right. Appreciate it tonight. We'll be back with another podcast in the morning. Plenty of guests, maybe even some really fun guests too. And we'll keep doing this. So appreciate it, guys, for hanging out. We'll talk to you later.